Game 2 here means that we're in store for some fun stuff. Because Game 1 was pretty exciting. It was close at times, but in the end the Protoss player was just able to overpower thanks to the AoE of those Colossi. Spawning down in the bottom right position of Heavy Rain for Game 2. He's down a game, has to win this if he wants a chance of going into the winner's game. It's a Zerg player, HaNfy. And to the top left, his opponent, the Red Protoss. Winning game number 1 by the power of the Colossus. It's Patience. Patience, of course, didn't just win game 1 through the power of the Colossus. The Colossus was just the right response to what HaNfy was doing. And while HaNfy was trying to take it out and got a decent number of corruptors on the map, overall, he just did not have enough stuff in order to hold off the eventual onslaught from the Protoss player. Game 2, I'm going to be really interested to see if HaNfy decides to go for the same composition as Game 1. If it's going to be those Lings and Hydras, or if it's going to be a Roach Hydra composition, which is a lot more tanky, buys him a bit more time, as opposed to the better composition against Stargate units. It just all comes down to if HaNfy is expecting there to be those Phoenix yet again. So, Gateway Expand coming down from Patience, just as we saw in game number 1. Feeling nice and safe from all of this. Whether or not we see... We're not going to see hatch pull because the spawning pool is already on its way. So it's a hatch first into pool out of HaNfy. Meanwhile, Patience adding in his Cybercore. This is a different build to what we saw game 1. Game 1 he went 1 gate expand, then the Cybercore. Game number 2, getting that tech earlier. Maybe going to be a little bit more aggressive. So, we do now have third hatch coming down. It's been scouted by Patience. Knows that this is coming through. Going to be doing his utmost to try and punish that if possible. The important thing though is HaNfy has seen that, okay, there is no natural base yet, or he's about to come down there and confirm it. Hasn't seen the Cybercore. Sees 1 gas though. Gonna see it's a later expansion, and with only 1 gas, it could still be a very big Zealot play coming down from Patience. His Chrono Boost though being spent on his Nexus and Probe Production, and Mothership Core of course, which means that the Warp Gate tech isn't coming down as quickly as it could be, but still going to be down earlier than a standard gate expand. Meanwhile, HaNfy just starting up production of those queens. Doesn't have any Lings out on the field other than the 2 that are sitting around the natural. Going to need to get at least 6 out in order to stop the Zealot harassing the third base, but this is only a little bit of poking and a little bit of prodding. But there's the potential that more could be following up, and as such, more Zerglings have been produced just to make sure that there's going to be a decent amount of stuff in order to stop the pressure coming through. Zealot gets surrounded, Queen working away nicely. Zealot actually surviving for a long time there, but the Mothership Core gonna have to back away since the Queen is now on the field. There's more on the way too, so that means that even if 1 goes down, there's still the injects there, and there's also the added defense to prevent little gateway shops from doing too much. Sentries coming out, Warp Gate tech nearly done. We've got a very early +1 upgrade coming through here from Patience. He's gone up to that 2nd gas now, and HaNfy isn't gonna easily be able to get information about this if the sentry was out, or if the sentry was up here. But because it isn't, this Overlord happily floating on by, just going, I see what you're doing there, you're getting a forge down, I know the timing of your Warp Gate tech, and I know you've got a lot of sentries. It's a lot of information that's very important, because those sentries coming down early can lead into, obviously, an Immortal Sentry all-in. The important thing that HaNfy was trying to scout for is, do I see any kind of robo facility? But no tech yet, just the 3 gates from Patience. HaNfy just knocking down that rock tower as well. And ooh, this is a big play by Patience. Takes a very early, greedy third base. This came down at around the 7-minute mark. Gets scouted straight away by a Zergling of HaNfy. And this is a smart scout. One Ling is 25 minerals and half a lava. And to confirm a third base timing is definitely worthwhile leaving at the third base position. So HaNfy now knows what's coming. He's got his lair on its way. He's adding in a couple of additional gases. But Patience also doing a great job of using this hallucinated Phoenix just to get the full scout down on everything that's there so far. So where does Patience go? Patience basically has to bide his time. Make sure that his third stays secure. He's going in to a mass Stargate play. 3 Stargates coming down exceptionally early. And this is something that has not been seen by HaNfy. 3 Stargates is a very, very uncommon build to go Skytoss this early. And it's going to be a bold play. HaNfy attempted to take the 4th. He's also got the Macro Hatch coming through and the Hydrogen. That's going to help him up against this Stargate play that he doesn't even know is coming. But 3 Stargates is a lot. And I doubt very much we're going to see that many Hydralisks immediately out of HaNfy. So the 3 Stargates now done. What is going to be on the cards out of them? +1 air weapons coming through. It's a big commitment to Skytoss. And we're eagerly waiting. Patience, just waiting. Okay, there we go. Phoenix. This is a bit more unusual. Getting a good number of Phoenix out super early is going to leave a lot of harassment potential. He can then switch, most likely into some Void Rays, just to make sure that he's got some big damage dealers. HaNfy, with the Hero Overseer though, scouts 2 of those Stargates, 3 of those Stargates. He's going to die for his time, but that was well worthwhile. Knowing that that triple Stargate there is a big move. Immediately, the Zerg player adds in an Infestation Pit, is fully aware of what's coming, and so it's going to be looking to get some Infestors down for the fungal growths, just to lock this up. Robo facilities starting off the back of this. Double Robo here. And all of this made possible simply because the third base was taken nice and early. By getting that third base down so quick, you've got obviously a huge amount of income. You've got a huge amount of resources at your disposal. So can go for this very greedy play. Phoenix harassing as best they can. None going down despite a Spore Crawler being in position. Only shield energy dying. Main base is currently undefended, but the Phoenix seem a bit obsessed with the 4th. Pick off only 5 drones, which isn't the largest amount. And they're going to get caught by some Hydras getting in a nice position. 2 Phoenix get taken out there. No more being produced. All production starting now into Void Rays. And the double Immortals should get started up. Going to be interested to see if and when we get the Colossi coming. But again, as we saw in game number 1, we've got some fairly cool stuff from Patience. But his vulnerability is in the early stages, which is where these Phoenix come in. Patience is vulnerable early on because the massive investment in tech means there's very little gateway support. So the Phoenix harassing prevent HaNfy from being an aggressor because he's got to be defensive. 8 Infestors now coming through, and these are going to be very useful for HaNfy. Has Pathogen Glands, so they're immediately going to be able to fungal growth out of their cocoons. And if that comes down, then a couple of good fungals can really end things. As we're seeing now, immediately chain fungals coming down on those Phoenix. They should still be able to escape though, because there's only 2 Infestors there. So that's a lot of energy drained for 1 Phoenix. Not the best situation. Charge also on its way through now for the Protoss player. Going to allow those Zealots to get up close and personal and hopefully tank up a decent chunk of the damage. More gateways being added through now as Patience tries to plug that gap in just the basic units that make up the majority of his army. A few more Hydras, a few more Lings, and of course these Infestors making their way across the map. And the slow chance of pushing in getting ever so more likely. A few Queens in the mix too, which is really nice. Some good force fields from Patience, but the fungal growth hits. That gets a good few units. An attempt to lift the Infestors, preventing them from fungal growthing, fails just because the Hydra's guarding them. More Hydras on the way through. And while Photon Overcharge is still active, a fungal growth could be huge. And it is absolutely massive, catching the majority of the Protoss force. And these chain fungals are going to keep on coming. And this really was not what Patience wanted. He played an ever so tech greedy play, and things looking very good for HaNfy now to level out this series 1-1. The Infestors still in a nice spot, chucking down a couple of infested Terrans. The Colossi gonna buy some time, and maybe, just maybe, Patience will be able to hold here, but he has got to keep microing like a boss. Colossus falls, more Hydras reinforcing, Infestor energy depleted, and the Charge Lots are going to be able to stop this push. Really by the skin of his teeth, Patience managed to hold on there. Gonna get a nice couple of Infestor kills on the retreat, which is always very good times. And, well, this is just good news for Patience. He's managed to hold on. He didn't take really any worker losses. He's got to be careful not to overcommit. These Hydras coming up from behind, they'll be able to take out that Immortal if it's not careful. The two Colossi coming in, one very low, a third one behind. And this is all from the massive Robo Facility production we're seeing from Patience. He played this ridiculously greedy, as I mentioned, with the triple Stargate and double Robo Facility, and the super fast third. But he's not out of this yet. HaNfy having to go into that Spire. He needs Corruptors in order to stop the Colossi. It's just whether he can get them out in time. Spires take a while to get out, and Corruptors take a while to produce. HaNfy is still in a relatively nice spot this game though. He's still on 4 bases, getting his 5th on way. And Patience can't engage as of yet. He's going to want to be getting out a few more units just before he engages. So, Patience now up to 4 Colossi, but 10 Corruptors on the way out now for HaNfy. They've still got about 10 seconds until they're done, so if the move is quick and the move is decisive, Patience will be able to take out a lot of this army. The Corruptors should be about to pop, but they're not all grouped up yet. There's also no Mothership core with this army for Patience, and what that means is that he can't mass recall out. Hydras are looking to intercept the retreat. The Corruptors coming in from the side, there's not many Stalkers, and that means the Colossi completely exposed. What they can hope for is to get as much damage done as they can against these Hydras, and they're doing a fair amount. The continued retreat from HaNfy though, buying his Corruptors enough time to start picking away at the Colossi, but reinforcements coming through on both sides. The Stalkers making short work of a lot of these Corruptors, but all of the Colossi die nonetheless. The 5th base has also gone down by Patience, getting some nice harassment. The 4th very low, and the overall engagement goes in Patience's favour, despite losing those Colossi. He's in a mighty good spot now after that, quite frankly, miracle hold at his 3rd. And it seems that his greediness has really paid off. HaNfy scrambling to get a couple more units together, and if he can get a decent number of Hydras out, he can defend against this for a while. But remember, there are still double Colossi in production, and have been for a long time. So despite the 4 Colossi dying early on, they're going to be back before HaNfy knows it. And HaNfy, while he managed to take out the Protoss force, lost his 4th and 5th base. That means that he's on equal bases with Patience, which is never where you want to be as a Zerg player. Patience also going to be starting up his 4th, now that the creep has receded. And so, again, this game is looking like it's swinging about on who's going to be taking the favour. And this is the beauty of StarCraft, is if you go for a greedy play, you do get yourself better late game, but in the mid and early game, you're vulnerable. HaNfy tried to exploit that with that big push into the 3rd, but because Patience just managed to defend, he had the economy and the tech and the production to resupply an almighty army that is causing HaNfy so many problems later on. The Hive is coming down. Army supply is favouring Patience, but it's the lack of any Corruptors now that's going to cause the problem. There's only 15 Roaches and 18 Hydralisks for now, and the third base will fall. A counterattack coming through though. HaNfy looking to get some of his own damage down, but I just don't feel he's got enough units yet, especially with the retreat from Patience coming to get in a defensive spot. Patience knows that with the third falling, he is now in a very solid position and a solid advantage. It's not quite comfortable yet, it's not quite a clean sweep. His opponent does still have a decent supply, but the longer this game goes on, the better it starts getting for Patience. Glad to see some High Templar in the mix. Ideally wants to not spend all of their energy on the Sonic Storms, because he's going to need some feedbacks for when the Vipers hit. Vipers very vulnerable to those feedbacks, and by getting the Vipers out, it does somewhat mean that you don't have to get the Corruptors, because you're able to abduct the Colossi and get some good damage down, but only if the Vipers can get in range. And with the High Templar threatening the feedbacks, that isn't always easy. So the Hydra's still moving around. Bear in mind we're approaching the 23-minute mark of this game, but Patience may have had enough. He's moving forward. He's got a very sizable force, and while the Vipers are in a good spot, they get some great abducts. Down go some of those Colossi, some amazing blinding clouds on all the army, but is there enough support? There's only a handful of Roaches and Hydralisks. The Storms are now hitting, and the Protoss player pushing forward. The Blinkstalk is even getting very aggressive now. A few force fields, another amazing few blinding clouds, preventing a lot of the engagement from the Protoss force. But yet again, the third base forced to cancel, and HaNfy is sitting only on 3 bases, having taken a 4th up to the side here. Patience though reinforcing quickly, thanks to these proxy pylons, bringing in a lot more Stalkers, confident in his position now, not requiring additional Colossi, just through overwhelming numbers, barreling down the natural, breaking through, slaughtering everything there, and GG is called. Patience takes this game 2-0 to face off against Goody in the winner's game.